Well, the barber shop is only a few doors down from where the shooting happened. The barbers tell me 1 minute they are inside cutting hair and the next they are on the ground trying to keep her alive. When the barbers saw people running without thinking, they too jumped in. One of them dropped to the ground, applying pressure to her wounds. Others stayed right there, talking to her, trying to keep her breathing. And today, with that moment still fresh, they did what they could to process it. They left flowers, stood together and prayed, not just for her, but for everyone touched by what happened.
Today we're going to be in Grovetown, Georgia, just right outside of Augusta, which is close to the borderline of South Carolina, speaking about a small town girl with big dreams for her future and her family. Those dreams would take her to many different places as she spent her adult life with a career serving the country. However, in recent times, she was enjoying being a mother to 3 children that she shared with her now estranged husband. The two were said not to be on the best terms, but she was doing her best to have a positive co-parent experience for her children. This, unfortunately, was far from what she received, because even though she wanted to move on, he was not ready to let go. After they initially split in December of 2024, she thought that things in her life would be easier, removing herself from an unhealthy relationship. But in reality, things became worse. It would be about 15 months after they split that her husband decided to do the unthinkable, taking things to a fatal level. Those who knew 36-year-old Manika Scott or had a chance to encounter her would describe her as an amazing human who was always a joy to be around and had Southern hospitality. Coming up, she was raised in Bishopville, South Carolina, a very small town with a population of around 3,500 people. She went on to graduate from Lee Central High School with the class of 2007, and in a short time she would move to Tacoma, Washington for training in the military at Joint Base Lewis. Around that same time, it looks as though she was in a relationship and or married to a young man by the name of Titus Scott. The two would become parents to a son in February of 2009, and over the course of her military career, the family will also live in Texas and Georgia. While in Georgia, Sergeant Manika Scott was a part of the 447th Signal Battalion at Fort Gordon, which was a specialized Army training and doctrine command unit. The unit was responsible for training and graduating signal soldiers, including IT specialists, to be technical, disciplined, proficient in network operations, and troubleshooting. It was a part of the 15th Regimental Signal Brigade before consolidating under the 551st Signal Battalion as it is known today. Also, during her many years serving, she and her husband will have 2 more kids, 2 daughters, who are now 12 and 8 years old. After many years together and 3 children, things for the Scott family began to crumble in 2024, and the two would separate in December of that year. Now it is not clear whether 37-year-old Titus was still living in the home right away after the separation, but it wouldn't be until October 2025 when things really started to escalate for the worse. According to a police report made by Manika on October 22nd, 2025, it reads, "My husband and I are currently separated. We had a conversation on October 21st, 2025 with our children about the separation and him moving back to Texas. The conversation turned into a disagreement and he left the house. Today we discussed the previous conversation when it took a turn and he became upset. At Patriot Park tonight, he threatened to beat my car with a baseball bat. There were words exchanged, and he proceeded to follow me in my vehicle while on the phone expressing how he was upset and needed me to apologize. He expressed more about being upset and wanting to do something about it, as in damage my vehicle. He followed me to the Evans High School to pick up our son and followed me to Grovetown Police Department. He also followed me to the area of my residence, but I did not go home. I went to the Parker's gas station and called the police. I asked him numerous times to please leave me alone tonight, and he would not stop. After this terrifying incident, it was clear for Manika that Titus had his mindset on harm, stalking behavior, and emotional distress. After filing her police report, law officials warned Titus to stay away and let him know that further contact should go through the proper legal channels. This, however, appeared to cause him to spiral down more and more, and he began to show major warning signs of what would come. By the next month, on November 23rd, 2025, Another call to the police will raise concerns about Titus' mental state. Law officials were dispatched to his apartment for a welfare check in Evans, Georgia, after Manika reported troubling messages from her estranged husband. She told dispatchers that he texted her and said, "Let's hope there is life after death. And if I do it, nothing or no one can stop me." It was clear that he was talking about self-harm, and Manika was concerned about his well-being. When police arrived at his place, they found Titus with an almost empty bottle of liquor and a loaded handgun on his living room table. When asked if he was thinking about harming himself, he initially did not answer, then indicated that he was. He was then transported to a hospital for a mental evaluation. Now, it is not clear what happened after that medical evaluation, but what was clear was that Titus was a walking red flag, and his mind was only getting worse. A few months would pass, and at the beginning of 2026, things looked like they were headed in a better direction. However, it was just the calm before the storm. On March 25, 2026, law officials responded to Manika's home for a domestic complaint. She told the police that Titus had called her more than 80 times in a short period of time, including from a no caller ID number. Manika also told law officials he entered her home without permission and was found inside by their 12-year-old daughter after being told not to come in. According to official reports, Titus later admitted to entering the home, and after being contacted by law enforcement, he sent a message stating he had hid her laptop inside of the residence. Despite his alarming behavior, the case ultimately did not result in any charges, and here's why. Investigators noted that because the couple were still legally married, an issue involving access to the home and property were complicated by marital property laws. A magistrate judge advised that harassment charges would require a prior warning from law enforcement and that trespassing charges could be difficult to pursue under the circumstances. Manika was informed of other options, including filing a protection order or pursuing a warrant, but chose not to move forward. She told investigators she did not want to see Titus arrested and still wanted him to see their children. The case was then closed with waivers of prosecution. It was definitely understandable that Manika wanted to keep Titus involved in their kid's life because he had always been around, but at what cost? Because Titus took advantage of her kindness. Within a week of that domestic dispute, law officials were called to the scene of a shooting right outside of Manika's home on April 1st, 2026. It was around 5 o'clock in the evening when multiple people ran to the aid of 36-year-old Manika Scott after she was shot multiple times after a confrontation with Titus in front of the home. Bystanders from nearby businesses attempted to render aid before the ambulance arrived to rush her to the hospital, where she sadly succumbed to her injuries. Titus, however, fled the scene in a black Ford F-150, leading deputies on a brief pursuit near Columbia Road and Hereford Farm Road. Police then deployed spike strips, but he stopped just short of them and used his gun to take his own life instead of going to jail.
One day after Columbia County deputies say this woman was shot and killed by her estranged husband, a man rushed to help her is speaking. Columbia County deputies say Titus Scott shot and killed Manika Scott during an argument yesterday, and then he died by suicide shortly after leading deputies on a chase. This is drone footage of the scene captured by a News 12 viewer showing emergency crews lining Hereford Farm Road in Evans. This afternoon, we're hearing from a barber who jumped in to help her.
We're human. And yeah, that's severe, that's devastating and hard to understand. You can't comprehend why somebody would want to kill someone. There's no reason, there's no answer to that. But at the end of the day, I believe that, God, serves and protects us all. So I was praying over his family, I was praying over hers, I was praying over their kids, It's tough for everyone involved. And, like I said before, I believe in a God that can restore, and I believe in a God that can heal.
A friend and former soldier of Manika released a statement to us today saying how good of a work ethic she had and how she was a nurturing person and mother to she and Titus's 3 children. The friend says this situation is hard to accept. Safe Homes releasing a statement as well saying their hearts are heavy as they grieve this unimaginable loss in our community. They say tragedies like this remind them how deeply it can affect anyone. If you or someone you know may be a victim of domestic violence, there is help.
She had so much life ahead of her, and I'm sure she had many plans for her children that have now lost both their mother and their father. Did Titus think about what this would do to his kids and how it would change their lives forever? It is so very sad and so heartbreaking. Their son is currently a junior in high school who is really, really good on the basketball court, and I pray that he continues to push forward in the midst of such a dark time. He also had two little girls who I'm sure looked up to her, and they were her little mini versions of herself. And now at 8 and 12, they have lost their mother forever, making the situation even more tragic for Manika's parents, who have been together for almost 50 years. They have already buried a daughter in September of 2011 after a tragic car accident. Manika and her sister were their parents' only girls, and now they are both gone, and it is so heartbreaking. My heart truly goes out to their three children and everyone hurt by this senseless crime. Her life mattered, and she should still be here. Manika served with pride and carried herself in a way that left an impression on all those around her, and she will truly be missed. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts. Also, don't forget to comment your prayers and hit that like button and share to make your people aware. And as always, remember to stay woke. Things change quickly.